Hi everyone, I hope you had a wonderful Easter with your families and enjoyed the beautiful weather that we had yesterday. I wanted to talk just briefly about the reading this week. You're reading chapter 22, and this week continues with what you discussed last week, and it shows a lot of the advances in science. And it talks about Copernicus and his theory that the Earth and many other planets revolved around the sun and not the other way around, where everything was revolving around the Earth. And of course, this wasn't that controversial until Galileo really advocated this as fact rather than theory. And Galileo got into a lot of trouble. He was asked to recant what he said, and he wouldn't, so he spent the rest of his life kind of imprisoned. And the rest of the chapter is all about other advances in science, and I will let you read about those instead of tell you about each of them. But I do want to talk a little bit about your discussion, which I thought was very interesting. And I thought many of you made some really great points. And I think ultimately in the end, what we can say about this whole debate between religion and science is that the two should not be at odds with each other. And many of you said that they really actually need each other. They go kind of hand in hand. It's kind of like your head and your heart. Both of those things need to be working together as you approach life and make decisions. And the same is said about science and religion and faith. That whatever we discover about science, it may alter what we believed to be true, but it ultimately comes down to the fact that someone, a supreme being, which we call God, choreographed it all, put it all into motion, made it all happen, set it all, set off the spark that made it all happen. And, even if you are a scientist and you look at this empirical data and you look for physical science and everything that you can prove, you still will come to that final question of, but who made it happen? And that's where God comes in, and that's where faith comes in. And as a Catholic Church, we have taught that what's in the Bible tells us what's called religious truth. And religious truth is everything that God wants us to know about God. And so we believe the Bible is free from error when it comes to this religious truth. And yet, we can find some scientific errors in the Bible. We can find some historical or geographical errors, but there is no error when it comes to what God wants us to know about God. And the same could be said of the scientific advances that you'll read this week. All of those things come down to the final conclusion that some supreme being had to set it all in motion and had to make it all happen. So keep that in mind as you read about all the different scientists and what their theories were in this chapter. I also want to just put a plug in here. If you have turned in any work late that I have not graded, if you could please email me, that would be very helpful. In particular, if it's your research paper. I've graded all the research papers, all the ones that at least I knew were handed in. So again, if you've handed in anything late, please email me. And the email I prefer is the vancatj@mercyhigh.org. I want to remind you, you have a quiz this week, so you need to take that quiz by Friday at noon. And otherwise, you have to read the chapter this week. Talk to you next week.